Thank you, Daja Hao, and it's great to be able to be here and talk to you today. I'm Efeso and I'm standing because this is my home. My parents came here in the 1960s from Samoa, so we migrated to New Zealand, and their intention for our family was for all of us to get a stable home, to get a good education and work hard, and that's what we've been able to do. And so that's why I'm standing for me, because I think this is a city that embraces people from different communities, different backgrounds, and gives us the chance to really build our families, build our communities. I am married. I have two young daughters, and we live in Otahuhu in South Auckland. And I've been involved in Auckland Council now for almost 9 years, so it's been great being involved. I used to lecture at the university in teacher education. I've owned my own business and continue to run a consultancy on the side, and a lot of my work has been involved with youth development. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for people to look and to acknowledge that Auckland is a very diverse city, that we welcome everybody to Auckland. We are an extended whānau, and it's important that people can feel like I'm a person they can trust, and I'm really looking forward to meeting more and more people, especially people in the Chinese community, because I think my wife has links back to China, back to Guangzhou, and so we're very excited about how we have links, and I would love to visit sometime. So that's a little bit about me. I got involved in 2013 for the local board, and the local board looks after a small area within the city. There are 21 local boards in Auckland, and I became the chair. So my first election was in 2013. I was fortunate to be elected, and I became the chair of the local board in Otara Papatoetoe. And what the local board does is they make decisions for that area. So if we want to run Christmas parades, we want to increase community engagement, that's what the local board does. Then in 2016 I ran for councillor and I was successful, and so for the last 6 years I've been the councillor of the Manukau ward alongside my colleague Al Filipaina. And what that does is it looks at all the rates we pay and all the regional issues, public transport, housing, community facilities, and the role of the councillor is to look overall for Auckland and see what the best decisions are we can make for Aucklanders. So do we have enough playgrounds? Are we making sure that people feel like they can engage with the community? Are we building local businesses so that local retail can perform, they can succeed? And I think post-pandemic what we've seen is that businesses are pivoting just like we are pivoting, maybe sometimes 2 days at home, 3 days in the office. So the way in which we pivot means that even the decisions that we make at council need to reflect the evolving community that we have. When I was young, I used to see, there was a man, one of our prime ministers when I was little was David Longy, and he lived not far from where I live now in South Auckland. And he was a lawyer by background, involved in the church, but a real community person. He was someone I looked up to because he was a great speaker, but I knew he was involved in the community. My parents, whenever they had challenges, they would go and see the local MP. So I think it was seeing someone work closely with the community that got me excited about politics. So that was when I was little, but I didn't make a genuine decision to pursue politics until only about 9 years ago. Yeah, my priorities will be reuniting the city. I think it's been a difficult time during COVID. I think people want to interact again. So social interaction is really important. We meet with our friends, we connect with our families. And my first official policy was fares-free public transport. So I would like to see everyone be able to get on the bus or the train absolutely free. So you hop on, you tag on, and you're able to go to wherever you're going. So whether it's work, visiting friends, going up to do your shopping. Because I believe if we get rid of the price challenges that we have, people will be catching the bus more, and that is good for our climate actions as well, because we need to reduce, we need to decarbonize as much as possible. So if people are not using their cars, they're catching public transport, and we can look to Asia, we can look to Chinese people all over the world and the kinds of activities where we've encouraged public transport. And I think that's going to make a serious difference. And I think the other thing that we want to is a collaborative approach to local government. So working with the people around the table. And I think it's important that your viewers know that I'm one vote, or the mayor is one vote of 21 votes. votes. So it's not like the mayor has all the power. The mayor has to work with all the councillors, be collaborative, and I think that's my style of leadership, is talking to people, making sure that they understand what our vision is collectively for Auckland, and then we're able to build a consensus so we can move in that direction. Yeah, I think some of the differences I have is I've only been in politics now for 9 years and in local government, and I've enjoyed working with Phil Goff. We haven't agreed on everything, and there's been some good things that we've agreed on. I think the difference is I come from a part of Auckland that he doesn't come from. I have an experience. My experience has been more with young people, lecturing at the university and owning my own business. And so some of those experiences mean that I have a view of the world that might be a little bit different from him. So we have similar leadership styles in that I think we're collaborative, we want the best for the city. I think what sets me apart is I'm visionary for the city. I think everyone should have the opportunity to participate, and that means whether you're Chinese, Samoan, European, everyone should be able to have a voice, and I'd like to see us increase our voice from those from ethnic, diverse communities. Yeah, so I want to look at housing as well, how we increase the number of houses. The Salvation Army estimates that we've got about 30,000 houses too few in Auckland. So we've got to make sure that we've built more houses. We've got to intensify, and I'm a believer in intensification, because it means if you're building good apartments that people can live in close to the bus line, it means we won't need to have lots of cars, because people walk out of their apartments. Like me, I live in an apartment. I walk out onto the street and the bus comes every 5 minutes. So that's the kind of Auckland that I believe is the new Auckland. It's no longer the Auckland where everyone had a bit of land and they were able to enjoy that land. I think it's good if you have, but for many of us, in order to be housed, we've got to look at intensification, catching the bus, because it achieves a lot of our climate goals, but also a new Auckland in that we're going to be ethnically diverse. We have more than 200 ethnicities in Auckland, and so it's important that we appreciate what everyone has to offer. So the new Auckland means more festivals. We've got the Lantern Festival, Pasifika Festival, Diwali, and I think it's time to add more festivals, because that brings people together and we appreciate everyone's differences. So I think that's what the new Auckland looks like, because we're not just in different parts of Auckland, we're one big city that appreciates everyone's difference. Yeah, the harbour bridge is a nightmare, you're absolutely right. So I want to work closely with the Crown or the government so that we can achieve the second harbour crossing. I think we need a second harbour crossing. I think if it's important that if we've got light rail or rail going through the harbour crossing, the ability for people to walk or cycle, that's going to make a huge difference, because it decongests our roads. Because the challenge we have is that we've got lots of cars and we've got people who need to access the harbour bridge. But if we can diversify the way people travel, we've got the if you look at the shore as well, you've got the Northern Busway, and that over a period of 10 years we've gone from something like 1 million trips to 8 million trips in the Northern Busway. So let's extend it right out. So public transport is a key infrastructure policy. The council can't afford to pay that on our own. We make a contribution. So it's important we work with the Crown to achieve decongesting our roads and making sure that over the next few years we're planning ahead for that second harbour crossing. That's one thing. We've got to get light rail to the airport, so that's from the city through to Mangere. That's going to open up a lot of jobs, because people will be able to access the airport, and the airport is a huge employer. And the other thing that does is it creates, the estimates show that it creates up to 70,000 houses. So if you've got that many houses, that achieves the 30,000 that the Salvation Army is saying we're short by. That's going to connect people, opens up jobs, and then we've got the Northwestern Busway and eventually hopefully light rail that connects us through to the northwest. So when we see it as an overall package, people think, yeah, we're planning ahead. I think the challenge in council is often in politics we only think every 3 years, because we have to get re-elected. My hope is that we think in a visionary way, because I want my daughters to grow up and think, well, I don't need a car. I can catch the bus, but I can rely on the bus, because you want the bus to turn up on time. Yeah, I think when they realise that we're working alongside the Crown, so there's taxpayers and there's taxpayer dollars that the Crown is committed to, but there's also ratepayer money that we're collecting as well. And I'm satisfied that less than 40% of our income at council comes from rates. The other 60% comes from external revenue sources. And I think we should be proud of that because we're not relying just on ratepayers. But what we've got to do is seek a balance and make sure that the balance of what we're paying meets the vision that we have. So there's different things that council can do. We can look to long-term investment and working alongside the Crown. We will have to discuss rates at some stage because if we're going to be a city that grows, in the next 20 years, we're going to be close to 2.5 million people. We're currently 1.7 million people. So over the next 20 years, we are really going to grow. And that growth means we have to invest. And those are payments we need to be thinking about now. So are there things that we need to prioritize in the way we spend our money so that we can achieve all of these things? Rates is part of that discussion as well. So I think it is very achievable, but we've got to work closely with the Crown. And one of the things I've said right from the beginning is we need a strong voice in Wellington at central government because more of that taxpayer dollar needs to come to Auckland. We represent 40% of the GDP of New Zealand. I think over the next 20 years we would probably be half of New Zealand's GDP. So a lot of the tax money needs to be invested in Auckland because we're the engine room when it comes to economic development and arts and culture. Yeah, it does concern me because I want everyone who comes to Auckland to feel like it's their home. And just like for many Chinese people who've come to Auckland, for Pacific people like my own family who've come to Auckland, you want to stay here. This is our home now. And so it needs to be an affordable place. So the reason I think we've dropped in our rankings is because we're no longer affordable. We're like many other countries, many other cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, very high in the cost of living. And we need to address those things. So we want it to be a place where people want to come and live, and that's what we have, but we've got to work on our infrastructure. We've got to have good public transport, we've got to have jobs, and you open up jobs, we've got to draw the talent, and that means we've got to invite people to come into New Zealand and work in New Zealand, but we've also got to make sure that our young people in school at the moment are pathwayed into jobs that are already here, because we have a lot of people who want to go and work overseas, but we should be able to keep a good number of our young people in jobs in New Zealand. So the way to make it a much more livable city, a city that we would love to be able to stay in and not have to go to Australia or overseas to earn more money, is to look at our wage settings. And I think that's a Crown issue, but I think we should be looking at the living wage. We've got to get our base income up to around $25 per hour, and that's a commitment that Council has made. But we've also got to ensure that there's enough houses so that people who are coming to Auckland can stay here, not have to live far and then commute in. So those are the things that we've got to do, but we've got to be a city that reconnects again, people appreciating other people, other ideas, other ways of doing things, and that's the city we want for the future. It's very disappointing, and I know that we've got some challenges with a lot of our young people who are involved in this activity. There's a number of things I can talk to. Firstly, I have a very good relationship with the police, and I think what we need is local communities to work together. And if you've got the police, more community constables, because the community constables mean they're on the street, they work with the community, they're near the local shops. It makes people feel safe. So we've got to make sure people feel safe, that they know that they can work together to achieve safety for their retailers, because it's been hard. When a shop is violated the way it is, it's depressing for shop owners, because a lot of investment has gone into that shop or that retail area that you're committed to. So let's work together with businesses, with the police, with youth workers to achieve that and make people feel safer. And then we've got to do a lot more work behind the scenes, so more youth workers and social workers who are working with a lot of these young people who we know come from poorer backgrounds, very challenged backgrounds. If they're in school, if they can see a vision for themselves, that's going to keep them in school. And I think a lot of our children look at wanting immediate gratification. They look at it and they think, well, it's easier for me, rather than work hard at school, I can just go and do this. I don't want them doing that. I want them to know that when we work hard, when we make commitments, when we look long term, that's going to help. So at both ends of the scale, we're working alongside the police and our youth workers to make people safe and to create safer business and local economic environments, but we're also working with organisations and community groups who are working with children who come from very challenged backgrounds so that they don't head in this direction. Oh, I think we've got major challenges, you're absolutely right, but what we've got to do is advocate to the Crown, because they've got the finance ability to be able to build more. Council can't build the way, we can't debt fund housing the way the Crown can, and so we have to advocate. My message to the Crown is Aucklanders need houses, and the Crown must be able to deliver for those families who need housing. So we've got mixed housing developments that are going in, that's going to be helpful. And we've got to look at, for council, how do we work alongside developers? How do we make it easier for them to consent? How do we take away all the red tape so that developers who want to develop areas into housing are able to do that? The other thing we've got to remember as well is that we've got renters who need to have their rights created. So it's difficult, because if someone decides they're going to sell their house, you get 42 days notice, or if you're moving out, you get 90 days. That gives people no security whatsoever. So my advocacy to the government will be, let's make sure renters can feel safe. If you look at other jurisdictions like Germany and Finland and in the Netherlands, that often many people will go into those houses and they know that they can be there for 10 years, for 15 years for renting, and that's what we've got to be able to make safe. But one other idea I have is there's a lot of unoccupied houses in Auckland, and the census showed us that there's probably anywhere up to 30,000 houses that are owned in Auckland but no one's living in them. That's what the suggestion is. So council could work with those, find those homeowners and say, why don't you allow us to manage those houses, so that that's your investment as an asset, and we'll hold your investment, we'll look after it. But council can say, well, if there's 30,000 houses that are unoccupied at the moment, that meets the very needs that we have when it comes to the housing shortfall. And I think we've got to create the opportunity for landlords who are feeling nervous about renting out their houses. We can say, you can trust us with it, we will take care of it. We've got to get people in them. So there's a range of things we can do, but these are the ideas we've got to nail now, because in the meantime we have one of the worst homelessness challenges at the moment in our history, and we've got to work with people so we can create more housing opportunities. There are good models in place. So there are good community housing providers that are available. Salvation Army, Vision West, a lot of these organisations are really good, and people are able to give their house over to them and know that they can get them checked out regularly. And that's the thing, is they provide you with all that security and that assurance that we're going to be checking the house every couple of weeks. We will make sure that the way in which you give the house to us is the way in which you will get it back. So there's already models in place with community housing providers that can give us confidence that we should be able to give our house over. And there are testing regimes. We're able, if you were a homeowner and you said, well, actually, okay, I will give this a go, why not try it for 6 months or for a year? And it doesn't just have to be emergency housing. Some groups might say, well, I want a family, the same family, to stay in this house for at least 5 years. And if you give the family that kind of assurance and security, they're going to look after the house. My family lived in a state house when I was young and little, and my mum loved the house. Mum and dad used to have a taro plantation in the house, and we looked after it just like it was ours. And I think we were there for about 15 years. But it was a beautiful house because we were proud of it, because it felt like our home. And if we're able to allow the landlord to trust a unit of council, this is an idea that I have, then we can give them every assurance that we're going to partner with families who will look after their house as if it was there. So I think there's the possibility of this happening. We can warn people to this idea. I think there's a few things I can draw on. My family experience, I have two young daughters. I want them to succeed. I want them to be able to speak English and speak Samoan, and that's a good thing. I want them to grow up in a community where they know their neighbours, where they're catching the bus, where they're very aware about what they eat, about the way in which they compost any leftover food, the way in which they travel. All of these things mean that we're a sustainable society. And my daughters remind me, my eldest in particular, of the climate change activities that we need to undertake in order to meet our carbon or decarbonised emissions. And so that's something really special. So being a migrant myself, or having migrant parents who worked really hard. And I want people to know that when you work hard, there are opportunities that come your way. My parents worked very hard, and I'm the beneficiary of all of their hard work. I went to university, I got a good job after university, and that's the message we should be seeing. So I think that gives us a story that's everybody's story. If you work hard, if you keep trying, don't give up, then there's opportunities that come your way. I also think that people need to know that I own a business. I have my own consultancy, and I understand what it's like to be looking for contract work, to be trying to establish yourself so that people are purchasing the products that you have to offer. And in this world, you're going to need people to appreciate the product, and then they will purchase it. And I know many businesses which have really struggled over the COVID period. Some have folded and had to shut down. But as we come out of this COVID pandemic period, businesses are going to want assurance that they've got a mayor who understands that there are some high overhead costs that they have to meet, that it's tough, that you work long hours. And I acknowledge that, and it's important that council works alongside businesses, that we are open to businesses and even external investment, overseas investors. You want to look at Auckland and think, that's somewhere I would like to set up an office. I'd like to set up my company in Auckland. So how do we attract them? And we attract them by making it good to work with council, by making it safe, and we've talked about that, but also knowing that this is going to be a place where your business can thrive. And even when we're sharing staff, if people are coming from overseas to work here, what a wonderful experience, because then all of that experience just helps your professional development. So I think my personal experience coming from a migrant family, and even some of my business expertise, shows that I have the plethora of experience to be able to say to Aucklanders, we can do this together. No, I'm not satisfied. I think what it shows is there's lots of work to do, because still leading me is the undecided vote. And so everyone's been congratulating me that I'm in the lead. But for me, I look at the undecided, which is above my result, and it reminds me that I must get out to meet people, that I must convince Aucklanders that I have a vision that we can all share, that this is a vision that will be sustainable and just, that it will open Auckland up to the world. And so I'm really glad that that's the result, but it just says more work. I've got to do more work to get out to Aucklanders. And your viewers may not know this, but we have very low voter turnout in local government elections. Only 35% of Aucklanders voted last time. So it's important that we get out as far and wide as possible to meet Aucklanders across the city, so that they look at my style of leadership, courageous, collaborative, caring, and they think, yep, there's someone we can believe in, and we're going to vote for him. So a long way to go yet. I think another 10 or 11 weeks, but I'm committed to making sure I get out to meet every Aucklander, or as many Aucklanders as possible.
Yeah, thank you. So overall, how confident are you regarding winning this year's local council election?
I'm confident to the end that I believe I have the vision that's going to lead Auckland forward. I'm a different kind of a leader. I'm a leader who wants people to feel like this is their city, this is their home, this is where they belong. And when you feel that, you invest. You set up your family, you set up your business, you set up your education, and you build your life around the belief that this is my home. I want to invest in my home, and as a result of investing in our home and in our families, we're investing in our city. So I'm loving the campaign. I've met so many different people. I'm trying my best to learn different languages and say hello to so many different people, but that's my commitment to Aucklanders, is that in me they will have a leader who will listen to them, who's authentic. And I'll be honest, if there's something I don't understand, then I need to find out who knows that stuff so that I can bring them and they can help inform me. The same way I can honestly say to Aucklanders, I have a dream for this city, a sustainable city, and this is the dream that I believe it holds a beautiful future for our city. Oh, my words are, you are welcome. This is your home. Welcome home, or welcome to Auckland, to Tamaki Makaurau. And one of the things I know for the Chinese community is they are people who work hard. They want the best for their families. And maybe similar to my experience, they want their children to be able to get a good education. Those are the key tenets of a Tamaki Makaurau Auckland that should speak to the Chinese community. And so we want them to come. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel like they can be here, they can establish their communities. I know many Chinese people in my own area that have set up shops, that have got food shops, and when we talk, they say, yeah, this is a great place to run our business, but Efeso, let's make sure we keep us safe. We work on the ram raids, because if the small businesses are succeeding, then families are succeeding. And people will, when you go home back to, whether it's going home to China, Singapore, Malaysia, wherever our Chinese people are coming from, they can talk about Auckland. That's the best way to sell Auckland. So my message to the Chinese community is, this is your home. This is a place where you should feel like, I want to have a say in what the future of Auckland looks like. And that's why it's important that you feel like, I'm investing in my family, investing in my community, investing in my business, and therefore investing in this city. Absolutely, yes. And it's important because you have so much to offer. You've got a different way of looking at the world, a beautiful way of looking at the world, and we share different foods, we share different festivals, and it's important that the way the Chinese community, the Asian community think is also the way the new Auckland is going to think. We've got to be ethnically diverse. We've got to be not just ethnically diverse, but also diverse in the way we think, diverse in the way we experience the world and look at the world. And so I'm excited that as people learn about the elections, they might get involved. You know, we've got a Chinese-speaking councillor, and Paul Young, and isn't it wonderful? And that's the start, and we've just got to get more people involved. I speak Samoan. There are 2 other Samoan councillors, a Maori councillor. So the more ethnically diverse we become, it means that the experiences are different, and then you'll have different Chinese people or Asian people will have different business experiences, different life experiences. Some have families, some have lived back home in China or in Asia, some have only lived here. That just creates a wonderful place for us to have good discussions, so that when we build a future-focused city for our children, then people think, yeah, they've been thinking about my children as well. That your vote matters, that this is one of the decisions that you can make to help shape Auckland. And I'm one of 7 or 8 people standing for the mayor, and I believe that by voting, you're saying, this is the Auckland that I want for the future. This is the desires and the aspirations and the hopes that I have for Auckland. And I want people to vote for me. But the fact is, if we're not voting, then we're not saying that this is the future I want. So the vote is really important. So, and the way to do it is I want to encourage people to register, and it doesn't take long. Just to go to vote.nz and you can register there. It will take you 3 minutes to sort out, and it has it in different languages as well. And once you're registered, you'll get a letter confirming that you're on the roll, and then you'll get your voting papers. So it's not hard, it doesn't take much time. And even for my own family, sometimes they're a bit scared because they don't read or speak English strongly. The vote.nz website, and it has it in Chinese, has it in Samoan, Tongan, Korean, and it means that all of the languages are there, so we can feel a bit more confident. So I want to encourage everyone to vote. This is your city, and as investing in my family and my home, we've got to invest in the democratic processes by casting a vote.